Okay, what a topic today. we we have something today that I think will shake up your world a little bit. I got this idea a couple of weeks ago when I was looking at a survey, an article. They were talking about if people had the chance to go back in time, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever, back to their teenage years, would they do anything different? Would they do things different? And all the question was would anything change? All the decisions you made and everything that you thought you needed to do, you did. Would you change anything? And a vast majority of people said, "Oh, absolutely. I would not go with the spouse I had. He ends up being not a great person, or I went off into college where I should have gone to work, or whatever the case was." But the underlying thing was they would change it, and they thought did things backwards. And so that got me thinking when Spirit was saying there are so many things in our culture, in our society, that is backwards. The way we look at healthcare, for instance. In some countries, the doctors get paid only when their patients are healthy. That's just one example. There's a few that really care about their patients, and the society agrees that if a client or if a patient is healthy, that's when the doctor gets paid. So that's when you see the doctors going, "Okay, I didn't see you in the last appointment. Are you okay?" There's a lot of proactive things. But in our society, it's completely backwards, where they get paid when you're sick, and only when you're sick. And that's just one perspective. Spirit isn't saying that's right or it's wrong, but it is a backwards sort of approach. And so when we look at things and introduce this concept to you of being backwards, and this is really a larger topic than I thought when I started looking at it, but it will at least introduce enough examples and so on to look at things are kind of backwards. And what Spirit is hoping after this class is you start looking at everything in your life. Is that backwards? Is this backwards? And so that's sort of the introduction there is that they wanted to really relay. One technique, just a very simple one before we start to get into this, there's one technique called the backwards technique. And what it does is that if you choose, the way it works is if you choose anything at random, and it usually applies to things that are in sets in twos, like two things to do. Whichever one you choose, it is always majority of times, it's the opposite that really would have what you needed to choose. I'll give you an example. Let's say you start your day and it's a little cool, so you put your socks on during the day, and you're going through your day, and then you wear it for about 3-4 hours. And it starts to get warm. And so let's say you remove your socks and put it beside the sofa or something. Maybe you'll wear it later if it gets cold. And so as the day progresses, the sun goes down, it does get colder, and your feet start to get cold. And so you put your socks back on. So if you just used anything at random, you just pick whatever sock you want on, and because of the way our feet are shaped, with the big toe and everything, there's a certain way that's more comfortable, right? Otherwise, the sock will be on the left and it's on the right, sort of thing. Whichever one you choose will be the wrong one for your feet. In other words, if you were going to put it on your right foot, you just pick up any sock and it's the left. And so, and that's just one very simple example that I've noticed over the years. It's very, very rare that I'll pick up one at random and it's the right one. So all Spirit is saying is just to introduce you to this concept is without thinking, without doing any kind of research or anything, you just do something, and whichever one you choose the opposite, and you'll be almost right all the time. Okay? You can try this on your own. It's really fascinating. I look at trends and patterns. That's really what I've been doing for the past 40 years. So I get really good at it when I start to see patterns in things. And this is definitely one of them. So when you have a thing of twos, whichever one you choose at random, it's the opposite. That is the correct one. That's just one thing. The other thing about being looking at things in a backwards sense, if you do things opposite, is that it does, and scientists have proven this in many studies, that when we start doing things alternately, it actually improves our neurons in our brain. If you start, let's say, brushing your teeth on your opposite hand, so whichever hand you brush your teeth, use the opposite hand. And it's actually a little funny at first. And if you're, putting on a pair of pants and you always put your right leg in first, that's just the way you always do it. Now you're going to switch it, do it backwards, and put your left foot in, back sort of thing. And to see if that, and what that does is that you are, instead of having something that it's such a slam dunk, it's just easy to get dressed, now your brain has to function and you're actually creating more neurons. So it's a good thing when you're starting to do things backwards. Eating utensils, if you always have your fork on the right and so on, switch it to the other side and then try to eat with your left hand instead. Very, very different. And your mind is just, what's going on? And this is actually good because you're creating those extra pathways in your mind that is open to things. And so what does that do? What does it do is it increases the options that you will sort of self-generate your mind to do. So when you have certain problems that come up, you won't be so static in what your results will be. When you start creating more neurons, those are essentially more options that you can entertain in any decision-making process. All right? So I remember this was years ago. It was a math student that had not that great of grades in her school. And then one time they segregated the elementary class and they gave everybody a test. After the test, all the students that got below 50%, and there was quite a few, it was about almost 30 to 40% got below because of the way the questions were asked, and they essentially failed, right? So they took those students and they segregated them into another room and gave them another test. And they didn't know what the answers were. They just said, okay, just do the best you can. Here's your time limit. And they gave everybody the test. After the test, they didn't even generate them or tabulate them or anything. They just said everybody got 80%. Way to go, guys. Hey, you did this. A short time later, 100% of those students that were told they were great math students had significantly higher marks in math only because they were told that they did. Now that's backwards compared to what we normally think. Because to become a good math student, you have to work hard, struggle, do all the tests, have a tutor, get all these math-related solutions to do it. And yes, those things do help, but not as significantly as you might think. The first order of business is to say, I am a good math student. So you're doing it backwards. That you're already a math student, and now you're just going to try and prove it. Much different than you're going the other way to prove that you're worthy enough to be a good math student. There's something in that translation from one direction or another that loses its effectiveness. When we struggle, when we are trying to be a good student, when we're trying, and that word trying comes up a lot when I go through coaching sessions and so on, I'm trying to do this. I say, okay, stop the trying. No more trying, now we do, sort of thing. It's like the thing from Yoda, if you saw the Star Wars part of it. But it essentially, we're trying to get it so that they already have that authority that they're a great student. And they believed that, oh, well, how come I failed? And then this was even, and they even said this was even a harder test than the first one. And they got 80%. So all of them had much better marks. Now, the definition that came up from Spirit, and I hope I got the wording right, was the backwards law says that whatever you are actually chasing, trying, struggling with, repels itself from the energy of desperation. When a person wants to be, let's go back to this math student, when you want to become a good math student and you don't do very well in the tests, you can't understand anything the teacher's saying while in class, the homework you think is, I just can't do this. That is a form of desperation because you want it so much, you want to be so much, and your parents, when you come home, they're saying, how'd you do in math? Oh, I got 40%. Oh man, you got to do better. So there's this essence of pressure and desperation to be there. Whenever you have desperation and you're trying, struggling, or chasing, it repels the exact thing you're trying to attain. Not sure if that makes sense. Okay, but it repels it. It's actually like two magnets. If the north and north, you put them together, they won't go together. They repel itself. And so this is why when people say, I'm not a good math student, that's not essentially correct. The first thing we have to do is reprogram what's going on. Again, we're doing things backwards. So here's a few other examples that I caught on the internet. Okay, the more you try to float, the higher your likelihood that you're sinking. The more that you try to float, the higher your likelihood that you're sinking. Another one is the more you chase after someone while you're dating. Okay, and the faster they will run away from you because they are picking up your desperation. That's word for word. I didn't even make that up. Okay? I mean, think about it. You get somebody that's going to text you 15 times a day. So if you want to date somebody, imagine getting 15 texts, 3 attempted phone calls, and they're always trying to, after the date you had last night. Well, the first couple of texts is cute, but hey, after 10 is a little irritating. Then they're saying, well, where are you? What are you doing? What are you wearing? Oh, wow, this is more. You know, in other words, that's desperation. You don't want any part of it. And it's that energy inside of you. So just that desperation energy, a person would repel the other person, let alone energy or whatever you want or whatever your beliefs are or whatever that your goals are. You're repelling it. The very fact that you have any desperation energy means you have to work so much harder. And I'm not saying it'll never happen because we have many examples that it does happen. But that's through many, many years of trials and tribulations. And finally, you get somebody nice, or finally you get that goal. But all Spirit is saying is that it can be easier. And we're closing a lot of doors that are really the opportunities. We're actually closing it ourselves. See, one of the things about a race, like let's say, for instance, we have a track and field. I'm not sure if anybody was in track and field in high school, and you had to do one lap around the track. I think it's 400. Is it a 400 meters or no? I think it's more like 800 meters or 1,000 meters, whatever it is. So you're gonna, let's say, run 1,000 meters around the track once, and I want you to envision that let's say every 20, 30 feet, there's a door that you're running. You have to stop, open it, run. Another 20, 30 feet, another door. Stop, run, open it, and so on. And you continue that for 1,000 meters. What is that going to do? In other words, yes, you've worked hard, but why were the doors closed? When we have, because Spirit's trying to give you an analogy here that you could see, when you don't have the energy of desperation and you just trust that you're just going to run right through it, the door's open. So it's just like running through, and you're going to go through all the doors, you come back, and you do it in a fraction of the time because you're not slowing down and it's not that extra work. So the solution here is called intense trust. That's the word that I kept hearing from Spirit, intense trust. So I tried to quantify that. It says, okay, can you give me more examples? Because, I mean, many people, including here, the people that are here now, have heard the thing, okay, just trust more. Okay, what does that mean? And so I'm always very inquisitive when people say, when Spirit says the same thing I'm hearing, and okay, yeah, I need more because people are hearing this. So they gave me one example, a deep-seated belief that you're a rock star already and a game changer, that you already have the goods to make things happen. I got it. I got what I need. I got what it takes. I can do this. And you're saying this to yourself. So I guess the first step, and it sounds like the way Spirit kind of worded that, was you got to trust yourself that you can do this. Trust that it can be done. You just don't have any proof yet that you've physically done it, but in your mind, it's done. It's done. And I have no desperation. I don't have to prove anything to anybody. This is going to work. And I just feel it. One of the things that I caught, I'm not sure if anybody saw the movie Catch Me If You Can. It was from Leonardo DiCaprio, and he played Abagnale. I forget what his first name was, but it was a guy that kept writing bad checks. And it would just floor people how he could walk into a bank, nobody knows him, and he would walk out with cash. In a time where there's no way, if they don't know you, there's no way you're going to cash a check. And they asked him, how did you do that? I mean, it wasn't that easy to just walk in. He says, all I had to do was just pretend I belonged there. And it was so, and he said, I didn't have any preconceived things I had to say. He's not working for the FBI doing the same thing backwards, trying to get crooks that are trying to do that because now he can think ahead of himself. But he said, I didn't have any indication of what I was going to do. I just walked in like I own the place. I own this bank. Everybody knows me. And I ended up getting the teller I wanted, which was really shy. And I was kind of hitting on her, and she went for it. And it just like, oh yeah, well, this is just getting something for my mom, and I just need a little bit of cash. And okay, well, I'll do it this time. He'd walk out with cash. Where somebody could do the same thing and it would never work. Well, we need some ID. We need this. Oh, yeah, we'll let you do a check on you. And he never had that. They never asked. They never asked. And that's what brought my eyebrows up, is that he believed it so intensely, so trusting that it just worked. He just saw it in his head that it would work, and it worked out perfectly. Walking in as just a regular guy, and he walks out with an airline uniform. And you have to have a badge, you have to have your number, employee number, everything from Pan Am Air at the time. It was called that. And he walked out with a uniform, no problem. You can't get that. But when he said that, I just pretended I owned the place. And I owned it. I truly believe that. So it was that intense trust, that intense confidence. That's where the confidence came from. When somebody says, increase your confidence, be very careful. Confidence is a result. It's not something that you could poke at. I got to have more confidence. I got to have more confidence. That doesn't work. Confidence is a result. When you trust yourself enough, when you feel that you're a game changer, when you're a rock star, guess what? The result of all that is confidence. So confidence is more of an outcome rather than something to work on. Don't work on your confidence, because Spirit says that's like pushing on a rope. You have a rope and you're supposed to pull, but you're pushing it. And so it's backwards. It doesn't work that way. So the secret here is to have such an intense view about what you want to do. Heard the other day, one of my clients were saying, I've been trying to get this book written. I want to write a book. I want to be a writer, and I just can't get the words on the pages. I mean, I started, I'm into it for a day or two, a few pages or so. I just can't get going. I'm not motivated. I maybe it's a writer's block. I says, no, because the first thing you said was, I want to try to be a writer, or I am trying to write. You have to stop that. Don't try. And we did a quick exercise, took about 4 minutes. I told him, okay, what I want you to do now, I want you to write something right now. Right now, write something. What? I don't care. I don't care. Start with Mary Had a Little Lamb, and then just start going. And then as soon as you start to write, then start to say, okay, I want it to have something to do with the subject that I have. And guess what? He wrote down almost a page. Now, he's more than 4 minutes. I gave him more than, as soon as he started writing, I let him go. Let him go. Oh, wow, he's going. He wrote a page. He says about a quarter of the page was just like gibberish, nothing. But because he was writing, and he says, I could do this, I could do this. I'm a writer, I'm a writer, I'm a writer. Well, guess what? The stuff he was putting down, and I said, don't even read it. Forget the capitals. Just write. Just get it on paper. You can edit it later. He wrote a page, and he says, you know, Tony, I've written more in this 4 or 5 minutes than I have in the last 6 months. I says, that's because you were trying to do it. You weren't doing it. I know it sounds like a cliche, but just start. If you want to be a writer, just start writing. If you want to be an entrepreneur, I need money. No, forget it. Let's get a lemonade stand going. Put it out in the end of the hallway if you have an apartment, or put it out on the street. When I got my first certification to do a tuning session, now for those that don't know what that is, it's like I have a massage table, and I put a person on that, and it's like a massage, but there's no physical contact. It's all about the tuning forks, and it goes around the body and so on. It takes about 20 minutes, half an hour. And I was in a commercial space at the time, and I said, I got to get people to come in, because I just started. I just wanted to practice, right? So I says, you know what? I know it's snowing. I know it's minus 10 out there. But I took my massage table and I put it on the street, literally on the street. And people were going by, and I had my gloves because it's cold. The tuning forks, would you like to have a tuning session? And they said, what's that? I says, well, it's just like a spa feeling, and it's going to make you feel good. But I won't do it for 20 minutes because it is cold. I'll bring it down to 10 minutes. Okay. So imagine a person lying on this table outside, boots on. I'm giving them a tuning session. And all of a sudden they feel something after 5 minutes, and it said, yeah, can I have your card? That was amazing. Okay, here you go. Next. Just do it. And it sounds totally ludicrous. I did it backwards in that way, because normally you get your clients, they come in the door, you do all your social media. I says, I don't have time for any of that. If I do it backwards, it might go faster, and it was. That's just one example. So that make it so that it is so incredibly easy that you're just doing it in that sense. Now, one of the things that we are doing backwards is making decisions, and we are chasing things. Some of the things that are way ahead of us, like the goals that you want to choose, we feel that we need to be where we are, work very hard, and that's been stressed so many times in school. It's been, in even any workshops that I did, you can do this. Just take your tools right now, and you can become a best coach, or you can become whatever it is. And Spirit says you need to do that backwards. You need to do it where you are focused ahead of where you are, and then from there, you're moving yourself through. And see, this is what it does. When you clearly visualize that you are that person already, you are that coach, you are that homeowner, or you are that car owner if you were looking for a car, whatever it is you want to be, visualize you're already there, and that you're just looking back and you're waiting for yourself to come to yourself. In other words, you're pulling yourself through, sort of thing. What that does is two things. Number one, it makes you immune to rejection, because you're not doing it for the step-by-step setbacks that are going on. Can you get depressed? Oh, things aren't working. You're not looking at that because you're already that person, and you're just going through the steps in order to get through the other side, right? It's like a straw, okay? Or if you're on the other side and you got a portal and you're pulling yourself through to get to where you are in the future. So whatever's happening now is irrelevant. You're not focused on it. But so many people, they work hard, they see the setbacks, they work hard, they see the setbacks, right? Am I not right? When we see the setbacks, we think that, it's going to take that much longer. So here's another part of this that if you are doing this, and this was I had to write this one down because when Spirit said this, it really hit home. It says, by trying really, really hard, in many people's words, by trying really, really hard, it means that you don't believe that there's an easier way. Think about it. If you are trying, struggling, chasing really, really hard, that's the way you do things. So the option of why isn't it easier isn't there, because your belief on struggle is invested so much that that's where you're stuck with. But how many times, and I used to have several people in my life that I passed over time, that no matter what they did, everything turned out for them. It didn't have to work hardly at all. I had this one person that used to work for us in the moving company, one of my employees, and he came in, he was always happy-go-lucky, he's always getting things, and he says, I forgot to get a coffee, I'll have to go get some coffee. You guys want anything? I says, well, yeah, we gave him an order. So he go in to get coffee, and he comes back and he says, well, after the moving that we're doing today, I have a date. I met her at the coffee shop. And one guy, he says, he's been single for 2 years. He says he can't do anything to attract. He just goes for coffee and comes back with a date. And so he says, how do you do it? He says, I don't know. It just happens. It's so easy. And when I think back, his nonchalant attitude, that it's just easy. Then other people, same situation. It's really hard to find somebody good. I tried to date. I went online. Somehow they don't stick around after the first date. That's it. Or not even the first date. So which sounds desperate and which sounds like it's easygoing? And even before you meet the person, you haven't even met that person, and you're already sending out that energy. Well, guess what? The two norths are coming together, and again, they're going to repel. I want you to do a quick sample exercise just before we get into the meditation. I want you to think of a decision or a question about a decision you want to make. Let's say you want to think, well, should I move? Should I get another job, or should I get a new job? Should I make an investment? I have a little bit of money. Should I make that investment that I was thinking about? Or should I get that promotion? I've been offered it. Should I do it or not? And so what I want you to do is I want you to take your dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, you take your dominant hand, and I want you to put it on top of your head. And I want you to ask yourself that question. So think of the question. It could be an older question, but just think of a question. What do I need to do? And so we're activating our brain, our head. What do I need to do? I'm just going to give you a few seconds just to see what response that you're getting. Ask yourself the question and wait. Now, those of you, have you gotten any answers at all or anything? Sometimes what will happen, not to put words in your mouth, but sometimes what will happen is you'll say, well, I could take the job, or I could get another job. I could move. I could stay where I am. I could renovate. In other words, you have many options, kind of thing. You could say, yeah, you could do it, or you could stay where you are. All right. Now what I want you to do is I want you to ask that same question and put your dominant hand on your heart. Okay, just around your heart, ask the same question and see if you get anything that's different. Take a nice deep breath and ask your question. Heart, what do I need to do? What do we need to do? Do we take that job? And sometimes what'll happen is you don't hardly get anything. You just might get a yes or a no, or you might get, you need to wait. All right. This is an exercise you can do on your own. If you're not getting anything, don't worry, it will come. But what Spirit is saying is when you take your dominant hand, that's your exuding part of you. So if you're left-handed, you put your left hand sort of thing. If you're writing on your left, if you're left-handed, then what that does is anything exuding coming out of you will be activated on whether you're touching your head or your heart. If you touch your heart, because you realize this, in one of the classes we talked about our heart having a brain. So you do actually have two brains. One brain is recording and decoding everything from a cognitive perspective, memory, and so on. And the part in your heart, there's about 40,000 cells in your heart, and they have the same matrix of energy that a brain has. And it decodes, and it goes mostly by feeling, and it's all about how you are feeling making decisions. And your head is mostly how logically things are falling together that makes sense, so that's what you're making your decision on. When we start looking at the two brains and you ask the two brains, what do you think? And whatever the heart is saying is what you go with. Because the heart is the one that's connected to love. I know when I want to love something. That's usually also the one that it will choose a job that doesn't seem to be paying very much. Yeah, but I either can choose this job that pays very well, or this job that doesn't have a lot of expansion and pays less. But now your heart is wanting that. Why is that? That's how you know it's your heart. Because your head, if it doesn't make any sense, will say no. But your heart will say, this is the one. And you're going, really? That's how you know. So that's a simple exercise how you can get a certain decision based on just simple energy, on things that it will really manifest in your life. And this works is if you are asking a question based on, should I marry this person? That's a biggie. I get that from many women. I should have known this before I went with Earl or somebody. It just that it works in such a great way that it alleviates the research. Because with all the research you're going to do, you can't possibly find out how things are going to work after that. Because look what happens in a relationship situation. It starts off great. Everything's hunky-dory, kumbaya every day. It works so well. And then within a year, 18 months, maybe 2 years, if it gets that far, you're already starting to see signs that, hey, now he's insulting me in public, and he never did that before, and he does this and he does that. So things change within that 2-year period. I don't know what the significance of the 2 years is, but perhaps it is how their energy is starting to settle, and they're no longer cloaking the energy because now they know they got you. You might even have a child by then, whatever the case is, you're basically a couple. And then something snaps or changes in that other person, male or female, doesn't matter. They both have the same type of pattern that of the ones that end up, and it's not great. All right. But you will never know that if you just ask your head, but your heart knew all along. So if that is any indication that perhaps that's one way you might want to add to your decision-making process, is to put your hand on your heart and, okay, heart, yes or no? Are we doing this or not, And you might get, he might be good for dating. He might be good because he's a great, passionate lover or whatever other case, but not to marry him. And that's fine. The Spirit says that's okay. But at least you consulted, at least your heart knows where your needs lie. Over the long term, it'll be perhaps another person, okay? But if you don't want to hear that, if you've already made your decision, your heart will know it, and you won't hardly get anything. So make sure that when you're asking, you're still in limbo. You're still in a non-decision process. You haven't made the decision and just want your heart to see, am I right? Yeah, that doesn't work because your heart knows you're asking and it doesn't want to embarrass you, thinking that you know it all and they'll just kind of go with it. They go when you haven't made a decision and you want insight. Okay? So love is the highest frequency, and what it does when you put your hand on your heart like that, it depolarizes all negative energy, including whatever energy that person or that investment or whatever it is that you're trying to get into. If there is any negativity in that, somebody wants to cross you, that negativity energy is part of that energy. So your heart will feel that. So when you put your hand on there, it depolarizes that negative energy if you really have, so let's say a longer term, let's say you have a series of relationships that went sour or a series of investments that didn't work. And you're going to say, oh, I'm such a loser in business. Everything I get into, I lose money. It's just like I got a sucker written on my forehead. I've heard that a few times. And it isn't that. It's just that whatever happened the first time, it was never cleared. And so that same matrix of energy duplicates itself in the next investment, in the next investment, and so on. So it's really the same energy. It's just replicating in different occasions. Same with a relationship. You'll have one bad relationship and thinking, oh, I'm so glad I'm out of that relationship, only to get into another abusive relationship. And it isn't because you're not a good judge of character. Has nothing to do with that. It's just that it wasn't cleared. You didn't say to yourself, you know what? I deserve better. I know I deserve better. And I'm going to do, and so what the trauma part of it is, and this is something that you can sort of try yourself. Okay. I'm not here to, as I've, some of these that spirit was giving me, I haven't tried, but what they're saying is when it comes to trauma, the old way was to just work through it. And a lot of people buried it or didn't address it or just sort of left it alone, figuring that, it wouldn't come up again. And lo and behold, it does. It does come up again because as we know, when something isn't learned, then it's repeated again and again. So if it is something that you need to address, then this is how to do it. So when you take that trauma or that incident or whatever it is that made you feel hurt or made you feel like you're inferior, you take that and you bring it up to the surface and you give it sort of a hug of light. It's just like they're saying, just pretend you get this hug and you're shadowing it and you're constantly hugging this. So it is like hugging a porcupine for a while. And then in time, the darkness turns into light. So it's backwards. So it's not the thing that we're fearing that you got to stay away from. It's like, no, come on. Okay, hug time. And it's just the last thing you want to do to this thing is hug it. I'm not going to hug that thing. I want to get rid of it. That's right. And how are you going to do that? If you push it away, what's going to happen? It's going to come back with friends. If you have desperation, it's going to come even faster. So how do we get it to leave? Give it the one thing that it hates. Love. It hates it like a passion. Fear, anger, that energy is totally different than love. And when you hug it, it's like, what are you doing? You're actually surprising the energy, because most time when fear or anger is given to a person, they have resentment, they have other low energies as a result, right? They have, or guilt or something. But if you hug it, it's like, who does that? And that's really what they're saying sometimes. Who hugs fear? Who hugs that incident that happened to me and it was horrible? Who hugs that? It almost is, if I hug it, that means it's going to come more. No, it's the opposite. It's backwards. It's going to be less and less. So cry, get frustrated, dust yourself off, whatever you need to do, and just wait for your second wind. The second wind is a term that's used after you've rested and you just wait for that trauma to turn to light. And that's where your second wind comes in, because now you have less weight, you have less trauma. Not that you forgot it, it's just that your brain and your mind won't have the same emotional response as it did before. And that's really what we're always about, where you want to have and change things. So what's really happening here is you're playing karma out. You're playing through it, and you just wait until this trauma, this hurt, this whatever somebody said or did over, even if it's over a long period of time, it's different work, of course. But if it's something that's relatively short-lived, like something that was said in a party that was insulting, that can be cleared pretty quick. But if you have 20 years of trauma and you never left a relationship, that's different work. But essentially, it is the same thing. You just got to do it more often. Hug yourself more and hug that energy more. By that point, it's not a cactus. It's probably a whole field of it. And so one by one, we got to just keep dissipating that energy so that it has some merit. Meditation. The one we're going to do today, Spirit has selected the tree meditation because trees seem to have an order of its own. There are some places in our society and in our landscape that there's no possible way that trees should be working or should be living there. I saw a picture in Arizona, and literally it was a rock formation that broke off, fell to the ground, and it looked like, millions of years ago, where there's this huge rock that came down, and in the rock, there's a tree growing. And I don't know how it got there. Who knows? There's no soil. There's no soil of any kind. It's all rock, and there's a tree growing in the rock. So maybe with the wind and the dust and maybe the birds, ledged on it, and they did their fertilizer thing, and then maybe they ate some seeds, and all of a sudden, as part of the fertilizer, there was a seed in there enough for something to grow. So in other words, trees have a way of growing even though it shouldn't be. In other words, it's backwards. There should be lots of soil, lots of water, lots of care. No. This had nothing, and it's on the side of a sheet of stone, and a tree is growing there. So that's why they chose this meditation. And the way they want you to visualize this is this. They want you to put yourself in the future of whatever you want to be. If you want to be a writer, let's use that example. Put yourself in the future that you're a writer. You've already got 4 books on the bestseller, and you're writing a 5th one. Something like that. Or you're an entrepreneur and you're extremely successful. Anything you touch turns to gold in the future. Okay? Anything you do. In fact, you can't even make a mistake. I usually use the analogy that you're walking along and you trip over a bag of money and you fall into another bag of money. like that kind of, you can't do anything wrong. It's impossible. You have the Midas touch, and that's in your future. Then what I want you to do is feel what that feels like, that you are already that, and you are. But for this purpose, I want you to feel that. Then there'll be a point in the music and everything else that I want you to turn around, look backwards, and see yourself today. You're extending your arm of the future, and you're extending your arm to go to the future, and your hands meet. Okay, follow me so far? Your hands meet, and your future self is pulling you through a portal, pulling you through a tube, pulling you however way you see it. Some people will see space or black or whatever it is, but your future self is pulling you to the future of where it is. And that's when you're going to find the things that are holding you up. Your pant leg may get stuck. Your shoelaces may get wrapped around something, so it's going to be sticking. The back might get stuck, and you feel something is holding you back. That's when I want you to start looking at what is it that's holding you back. Because if it's a slam dunk, like if you feel you are actually a bestseller writer right now, you'll just go through this portal like nothing. It'll be a very short journey for you. However, if there is something holding you back and you're looking for ways to find what it is, this is a perfect way, a new way, another way to find what is holding you back right now that you can't be there and why you're not there already. How come you're not there already? That's what Spirit's saying. This is one way. All right. So let's see what kind of things that you'll see and feel when you are getting stuck. Look around. Okay, what's stuck here? What's holding me back? Is it my back, my front? Like, look around in this vision that you're trying to pull yourself through, and your present self, there's something holding it back. Whatever it is. Look at a rope. Look at a hook. Look at anything that is confining your movement to move forward. Fair? All right. Let's have some fun. We'll see you in about 13 minutes. I want you to get comfortable in the chair. Take a nice deep breath. Today's color is orange, and it has that beautiful childlike energy. That's why we made all the graphics very fun-loving and over the top. And so we're going to do this backwards. We're not going to go from forward and we're going into the future. We're doing it backwards, where you're in the future and you're pulling yourself there to that successful place. Just make sure that place is very clear in your mind where you're going, okay? Because that's the portal that goes through. Okay, so see you in about 13 minutes or so. Take a nice deep breath.
We're like tuning forks. It means that we all have the capacity of influencing or affecting everyone and everything that we come into contact with.
Did you know tinnitus can put a stop to your life? Neurologists have found that tinnitus wipes your memory.
Slowly come out of the state that you're in. Try and remember what you felt, what you saw, what you sensed. Were you looking at that incident, or are you looking at your future in a little different way? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But if there's any resistance whatsoever, this particular technique knows that you're going into this other vibration. And if there is anything that's lower vibration, it will surface. This is a great way to not only go through whatever you need to go through, but it also confirms that, yep, I was right. It is this. And then you just sort of, it's not like is it this or is it other things? No, because something else would have come up. My experience on this was really interesting. I saw myself in the future, and it was in the beginning, it was a really easy thing. And then I got caught, and I thought it was something on my left side. And I'm looking down, and I thought it was a hook, but I couldn't see quite well because the vision wasn't that great. But have you ever walked by a door and you have a really like a wool sweater, and a button gets stuck in the door jamb, or part of the knit gets stuck in the door jamb. That's what it was that I had this sweater on, and it got stuck in the door, and I'm going through a doorway, and it gets stuck. Then the first thing I said, okay, where on earth did this sweater come from? So instead, and this is just out of training, instead of trying to undo the sweater represented something that was holding me back. So it wasn't the fact that it was stuck. It was just that something I was wearing made it stuck. So I took off the sweater, and whoosh, it just went right through. So that's what happened with me. And then it's on the other end, it was really great. But it took almost a good 12 minutes to go through. It was interesting that one of the interruptions, they were talking about a tuning fork. So that was Spirit's way of, I went to my tuning fork. So I got the love one. I kept ringing it while the remainder of the thing was. And yeah, great experience. I didn't have time to test it because I just got this morning, as far as what we're going to do, as far as the meditation goes. Spirit's always good at that. They don't give you too much ahead of time, so you can't plan too much. You just sort of go on the whim. Anybody else feel something about this? Okay, well, it's good. I hope this was something again valuable, or something that you could use, and to add on all the things that Spirit's giving you different ways to find your niche, different ways to look at things. But this one, when you're looking yourself forward, you're already that person. How does that person act? And act like it today. And then your mind will just take you there. That was pretty significant for me, because if you're thinking that you're going to have a home, a picket fence, or in the family happy, and it's something you're struggling with now, and that's the same thing, as we know from this, is keeping you in that place, to do it backwards and to say, I've already got a home, I've already got these great kids, I've already got all the things, 2-car garage, and just describe it and feel what it's like to be in that home. And then you pull yourself through. And then that's when you'll see what is holding it back, because the energy won't let you pull it through if there's a variance of vibration. If you don't think you deserve it, you will not get through. And so a lot of people will think that that's a setback. I says, no, I'm looking for things that is preventing me from not going through, because it's a positive knowing that my sweater guy, I never would have saw it before. I never would have saw it. And that must have been very recent, because I was with a friend over the last week, and they were very down, very down. I haven't seen them for many years, over 25 years. Very down. Health not good, just everything in his life is just sort of falling apart. And then I had a little chance to talk with him and so on, and he felt better. And so it might have been something that I got from him. Maybe I took his sweater off and wore it just because that's what I do. I sometimes will take a bullet for a client, and don't know what it is, but it's all in love. It didn't hurt me or anything, but it was one of those things that, okay, I'm not stuck. And this isn't even my sweater. And it was the ugliest sweater on earth. It had like 400 colors. And it's just like, what is this? And the collar was like crooked, and it was way too big. And this isn't even mine. So obviously it's something I picked up, and I just took it off. There was no problem taking it off. And it was wooden buttons on it. And the buttons was just the size of the hole. So, it's really hard to take off because you have to push it through. But anyway, I took the sweater off, and that was it. So, but it's still stuck on the door. So in other words, it's something that I took off of somebody, and then now I've released it. So, hope that helped somebody. It's if they can move forward, that's all good. But strongly recommend you do this again if you've had any kind of stuck, or if you did go through, try it again, and then maybe change your future a little bit, and maybe add something to it. Maybe if it's your homeowner, maybe you want to say, well, life isn't just about having a home. It's about having, like, let's say, something in the community that I have the resources to help, my church, or help the resources to help my community in some way, or domestic violence center or something, and then add that to it, and let's see if you still come through. Try different things to get it through. It's sort of a nice playful technique. All right. Thank you, people. It's been great. I hope this was something that helped you. And until next week, love you all. We'll see you next week. All right. Take care.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Bye
you,
now.
Tony. I really
Bye-bye.
like the backward law. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
That was valuable.
Yeah. All right. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Tony.